And then one day on a drive to Clarkston, Georgia, I used to live in Decatur, and Clarkston's about 5 miles from Clarkston. On a drive that I'd made many times, I missed my turn onto Ponce de Leon and kept going straight, so I was forced to U-turn into one of the apartment complexes. And when I U-turned into the apartment complex, I saw all these kids outside playing soccer. And they're outside playing without any rules, without any parents yelling at them, with rocks set up as goals. They were barefoot, yelling and screaming. And the 5 or 6 boys that were out playing were all refugees. And I sat out there watching them, and it reminded me of home. It reminded me of how I grew up playing the game. And maybe I was a little homesick at the time, so the timing was perfect. So I know this sounds a little creepy, but I spent a couple hours watching them from my car. But then I went back home, and then I returned a few days later armed with a soccer ball. And I stepped out of the car with my ball, and then the boys came running to it asking for the soccer ball because it was in much better condition than the one they had. And I said, I would like to play in return. And so they were a little skeptical about this woman wanting to join their game, so they got into this huddle, started discussing it, and they said, okay, you're on their team. And they gave me the really chubby kid and the really small one were on my team, but that was okay. I ended up playing with them a couple of hours and had some of the best time of my life doing that. And I kept coming out regularly during the week, making excuses to my employees at the cafe of the errands I had to run. And so, we played for a few weeks and then decided we should form our own team. The boys thought we were going to form a professional soccer team and were excited about going pro, but we're just going to do a youth soccer team. But 6 of us weren't enough for a team, so we decided we need to go and reach out to other kids in the neighborhood. So we had this flyer made out and translated into 4 different languages, into Vietnamese, English, Arabic, and French. But the most effective recruiting tool was me and the boys going around the neighborhood and stopping kids that were about the right size, telling them, we have tryouts at the community center, you guys need to come out. And the first day I had tryouts, we had 30 kids show up. And it was a little overwhelming. I can handle 15, 20 kids, but 30 was a little too much on the first day. And so I told the boys, you're split into these 2 teams, we're going to scrimmage, and I'm going to watch you play. And I tried to give them which side of the field they were supposed to play on. And there was this one little kid that couldn't hold his position, didn't know right from left, so was just playing all over the place. He was having the time of his life. And I was trying to get his attention, but I didn't know his name. So I called to one of the Afghan boys that I knew. I'm like, Noor, what's his name? And he looks at me, and he grins, and he's like, oh, that's One Shoe. I'm like, One Shoe? He's like, yeah, that's One Shoe. And I look over, and this kid has this huge, oversized black sneaker on his left foot, his kicking foot. And his other foot was bare. And didn't care about that. He was just having the time of his life. So I watched him play, and then when he came off, he took off his sneaker, wiped it down, and put it in his backpack, getting ready to walk 2 miles home. He was 8 at the time. And he said, see you tomorrow, coach. And I said, see you tomorrow, One Shoe, to myself. And that night, I put away my brand new kangaroo leather cleats that I just bought for the season, promising myself that I wouldn't wear them until all my kids could. The second story that kind of turned my life around, I was taking one of the kids home after practice, and he started holding his stomach and saying it hurt. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And he said, oh, I'm hungry. And I thought he was trying to con me into buying some fast food for him. And so I said, don't worry, we're going to get home soon. You can have some bread or cheese or something. He's like, no, coach, we don't have any food. I'm like, you must have something. He's like, no, it's that time of the month. Time of the month meant the time the food stamps run out. So I went into his apartment with him, and it was dark, and the curtains were pulled, and the cupboards were bare. And his mom was in the corner rocking back and forth, saying, I work hard every day I work hard. And so we went out, we bought some groceries for the family. That mom had 3 boys, all under the age of 14, that she was trying to take care of, working full-time at the Ritz-Carlton and not getting paid any overtime for her work and having to commute an hour and a half each way to get there. So when I came back, I was like, oh, she's just not managing her money properly. And so we drew out a budget, and I tried to make ends meet, and I couldn't. There was nothing I could cut out to make ends meet for her. And at that point, I was running a cafe in Decatur. And the worry of if I was charging enough for a latte seemed inconsequential in the larger scheme of things. And so 7 months later, I shut down the cafe and filed for bankruptcy, getting ready to embark on this endeavor with the Fugees. Sorry, public speaking, not my thing. And the third story I wanted to share with you today, about a year after this happened, I was working with one of the kids in the park doing tutoring. And he kept saying he had a headache, he wanted me to read to him, and then he would get the questions done. And this happened regularly. And so finally I'm like, Lewis, can you just please read part of it? And then he looked at me, he's like, Coach, I can't read. His coping mechanism was to have someone read to him. He would memorize everything you had read to him and was able to cope that way. He had been in our public school system for 4 years and was passed through the system because he was a good kid. And I was outraged. And so we pulled him out of school and started our own private academy. And that was 3 years ago that we started the private academy. And now it's grown. It started off with 6 students and 1 teacher. And this Monday, we have 24 students and 5 teachers. So a little bit of growth in the past few years. We were fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your perspective, to be featured on the front page of the New York Times in January of 2007. And it featured a front page story of our team, our struggles, what we went through, and part of the relationship we're having with the town over a soccer field. And that became the focus of the story. And the day after the story broke, my inbox had 400 emails coming in, like every few hours, of people around the world that had read the story and wanted to help and get involved. But the freakiest email I received was Sunday morning. This woman says, "Hi, my name is Stacy Snyder, and I read your story this morning. I was on the phone with my friend Steven, in parentheses, Spielberg, and we'd really like to talk to you." And I was like, Steven Spielberg? I thought one of my friends was playing a joke on me. But the story went into a bidding war, and the movie rights were sold to Universal Studios. And the deal actually happened at Rathburns. We were on the phone with the different studios then, and I haven't been back since because it was such a traumatic night. So when I walked in today, I was like, oh, maybe we should go back. This isn't a good sign. But after that, we were on the Today Show and ESPN, and this little segment was on CBS. They just ran a 10-minute piece on us on the FIFA channel, which doesn't air in the United States, but airs everywhere in the world. And
so the media attention's come, but I think it was interesting the first time we met because she was kind of she had her guard up against me, which was fair, and it was because, hey, all these people have come and want to share this story, but at the sake of what? Like, how does that? How
it's
have
like,
you
what are you willing? What are you willing to compromise? Like,
yeah.
Everybody wants to help, and my attitude is, if it's not in the best interest of my kids, we don't want your help. Like, they come first, and if we're not going to deliver something perfect or great for them, then we don't want to do it. Like, mediocrity is not acceptable for our organization, and the story does tug at your hearts, but we empower our boys. We want them to be proud of who they are. We don't want them to dwell on the past. We want them to be global leaders. And so when people want to help, we want you to give us your best, and we want you to put aside what it does for you, because it's them first.